I am so excited to be joined with Michelle Breyer. She is the Chief Marketing Officer at SKU, which is an incredible accelerator program for consumer brands. And we're going to get all into it in this conversation, talking about next gen CPG and what's ahead, innovation, all that good stuff. But before we get started, I would love to learn, Michelle, about your background because you started in journalism and then it evolved into CPG. So give us the lay of the land. Tell us about your experience.
Well, I got a journalism degree, thought I would always be a reporter, loved my job, actually covered founders, covered the CPG industry, followed John Mackey from Whole Foods around for a year. That was kind of, I love telling other people's stories. And I also, like, on the side, I have very curly hair, and I was starting kind of a side hustle with some friends, really kind of a hobby. How we fought our curly hair. We were constantly trying to find ways to deal with it. And there was nothing out there at that point, no products, no information. So we created a website and it took off and kind of became the center point for all things curly. And over the years, we developed a market research division where we actually helped a lot of companies develop their products for curly hair or position them or market them, everything from the Unilevers of the world to some of the indie hair care brands. So like developing products became something I was really passionate about, especially working with some of these founders of what were then, little unknown independent brands that became some of the biggest ones in the industry. And some of those have been sold for over $1 billion, So our company was sold in 2018, and I started mentoring for SKU because they needed people who had a background in the beauty industry, which, something I obviously love, and I love helping founders, of those types of companies. But in the course of joining SKU, I learned so much about food and bev and pet and all these other categories. Later, 2019, I was contacted by the board at SKU, and they were wanting to kind of expand nationwide. At that point, it was primarily an Austin-based accelerator. Most of the mentors were in Austin. Everything was in person. So I joined the team. A lot happened in that first couple of months of 2020, as we all know. And, SKU had to pivot overnight when COVID hit, and we had to become a hybrid accelerator, and the world changed because of that. Like, that was ended up being a good thing for SKU, because we then were thinking way beyond just the mentors that were local. We had access to people all over the country. Brands from all over the country could participate much easier because we had a hybrid model. And, since then, we have mentors as far away as Great Britain, Canada, coast to coast. So that's my story. That's my long-winded story.
So let's dive a little deeper into SKU. So I'm obviously very familiar with it, but walk us through exactly what it is, all the tracks, the programming, and more specifically, what you find most rewarding about your role in it.
So SKU was started by a group of consumer product accelerators here in Austin who were seeing, Austin was very much a place for tech companies. And there were a lot of different types of organizations and incubators for tech companies, but it was also becoming a hub for consumer product companies, and not just food and bev. I mean, look at companies like Yeti and Outdoor Voices and 𝗂𝗏𝗁's, just a lot of creativity and entrepreneurship was kind of settling in Austin. so they wanted to create something specifically for consumer product companies. And the idea was to, have a, 12-week program with weekly classes on topics very specific to the needs of a consumer product company, whether that's channel strategy or branding or operations. But the big kind of, I'd say what makes us unique, lots of accelerators have mentors, but we really try to create mentor teams, which are, 6 to 8 people, rock stars in the industry, top executives at Coke and successful founders and, just subject matter experts, people who are, who invest in CPG companies. So that team of mentors works very closely with the each brand during the course of the program, and they're very customized. So we have a company that's a snack food brand for the fall, and we have several people who worked on snack food companies, whether in channel strategy or marketing. So they're going to get access to people who really, they know the business, very well. And it's not that they want to do the work for them. It's that they can really help guide them so that they hopefully won't have to figure out everything from scratch. So, the program kicks off with a big, 2-day event, classes, kind of bonding opportunities. And then, most of the program is virtual. And then at the end, there's the big showcase pitch event, which is also in person. So it's, a lot happens during that 12 weeks. It's pretty transformational.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're working with some truly incredible and innovative brands.
Oh, yeah. I'm constantly surprised at how much innovation there is. You think you've seen every kind of functional beverage or better for you snack, and then somebody creates something new based on some need that they had or something they discovered. And everyone has like very interesting stories. It's, never boring.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're no stranger to identifying white space in the market, as evident from your experience in the beauty industry with Naturally Curly.
Yeah.
What next gen consumer trends are you most excited about right now? And where is there opportunity? Do you see any brands that stand out to you right now in SKU as the next unicorn brand?
I think, just in general, not just in SKU, but in general, I think it's different ways of taking things that exist and integrating them into new products. I know that one of the trends at 𝗟𝗶𝗱𝗲 was interesting uses of bone broth, into powders, a powder that can be added to like oatmeal, or there was a beef stick company that uses bone broth for a healthier beef stick. So I think it's like different forms of things that may be already familiar products. Like I'm trying, and just, there was a company in the last track, 𝗟𝗲𝘁, and it's, an Indian food company, but she's really very well poised to be kind of the 𝗟𝗲𝘁 of Indian food. Like she created these pretzels that have just taken off. They're made from pita. They're pita chip pretzels that are gluten-free, and they're incredible. And so, while she started with this one product line, the pretzels have become this hero product that she can't keep on the shelves in Sprouts. So, interesting uses of kind of international spices, or, I walk the floors of these trade shows, and, these trends just pop out at you, like interesting uses of honey. When it comes to beauty products, there's always some new ingredient that becomes kind of, is discovered and is, becomes kind of the hot product. So in this new cohort, there's a number of interesting, like there's a beef jerky company, and I'm a huge beef jerky fan. Like everybody who knows me knows that about me. And I've tasted a million of them, but this beef jerky is truly unique. I mean, even people who don't love beef jerky love this beef jerky. Or there's a gummy that it has caffeine in it, and I'm addicted to these. It's called Focus Fuel. I probably OD on these gummies, but it's got things for your to help you focus along with caffeine, and different forms of thing. I think that's what I am always interested to see.
Yeah, and protein everything. That's
protein everywhere. protein. Yeah, no, that definitely. When I came back from Expo West, I felt like, I mean, it was pasta, and even in beverages and coffee and ice cream, and
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to me which of these trends kind of stays, because we've all seen trends that have come and gone, and I don't even think I hear much about like keto anymore, or right. The kind of veggie burgers that aren't really veggies have kind of are out of favor. Like the alternative proteins aren't as popular anymore, so it's interesting to see kind of what kind of sticks.
Absolutely. I've heard that fiber maxing is the new trend happening on TikTok.
Fiber maxing?
It's basically the opposite of protein everything. It's fiber everything. So
lots of beans, probably. Beans and bran. Great.
So you obviously have a lot of experience in leadership and mentorship. I know those are kind of near and dear to your heart. And that's kind of the ethos of SKU in and of itself. So when you think about kind of advice for these early stage, first time CPG founders who are just starting out, what advice do you have? What makes a brand successful? What have you seen really work?
There's a number of things. Really know your market. Like, really don't be afraid to go to this, do your research, go to stores, look at what's out there already. Really try to understand what you're doing that makes you unique. I think a lot of times founders don't understand that, for your brand to be successful, it's going to have to take shelf space away from somebody else. So really digging into what your differentiators are, and really, you can't just have another Me Too product. Really listening to your consumer. That's like one of the most important things. However that is, like, I always recommend that small companies do things like farmers markets and things like that, so they can get like immediate feedback from people. Do people like it? If they don't, what changes would they make to it? And if people universally don't really seem to be that enthusiastic about your brand, you may need to, think twice about launching it. I think listening is the most important thing. When we're looking for brands for SKU, we always say we're looking for people who are coachable. And that doesn't mean you have to do everything that people tell you to do, but don't go in with certain preconceived notions of what the market is or what your product is. Like, you really have to listen. And sometimes you may discover things that you may not want to hear, but you need to hear. Mm-hmm. Let's see. And really do find people to mentor you. Like, what I found, which I just absolutely love, is people who have been successful in business really love mentoring. Like, they feel honored to mentor a founder. They feel, it's satisfying to feel like you're giving back. So find a couple people who, you trust. All anyone can say is no. Mm-hmm. But that you can kind of bounce things off, and who can kind of be that sounding board for you. I think it's so important when you're starting out. I also recommend that people become parts of groups like whether it's Startup CPG or the Naturally Network. There's a lot of free education out there. And I think even more than anything, community. I think community is so important for founders. It's a tough road. It's very mentally draining and emotional, and finding a tribe of people who are going through what you're going through that understand what that's like, I think is essential. Because I do see a lot of founders burn out. It's hard work. I mean, I have done it, and I know that roller coaster that you're on, and there's sometimes where you just don't think you can continue on because it's not like a straight up trajectory. It really is, a lot of ups and downs. So, really find that network of people.
Yeah, I'd love to actually get into kind of the headwinds of first-time CPG founders. What are some of the greatest challenges right now when it comes to launching a product? Because it is not an easy market right now.
I mean, there's everything from, the big one is working capital, because everything costs money. And so many, founders are able to bootstrap it to a certain point. But, when, there's a misconception that, you get into Target and like that is the end game. And that could actually put you out of business if you don't have the financial resources to do all the things you need to do to be successful. And that's everything from having the inventory, having the money to do trade marketing, because it's one thing to get on the shelf. The most important thing is getting off the shelf, like the velocity, driving that velocity, because many of these retailers only give you, 30, 60, 90 days to prove that you can be successful. So I think making sure you have the capital to support all the things that you want to do, but then even more so, those unexpected things that happen. We have a founder right now that's dealing with a horrible co-packer issue. And it could put her out of business. That wasn't something that was even on her radar, a co-packer that may go under, and with it is, her entire ability to produce product. So I think preparing for the unexpected is as important as like the strategy you have for growth.
Is there a brand in particular at SKU, an alumni that stands out to you just as being kind of surprising, unexpected, or that kind of blew you away that you didn't think would take off the way that it did?
Dude Wipes, it's a baby wipe for adults. And I think so many people thought that was the ridiculous idea. I think they got laughed at by bankers and retailers, and they'll probably do 300 million this year. So, in that case, I think that they found a differentiator. They knew their brand. They weren't afraid to be outrageous, and they had a very charismatic founder who was also very scrappy and knew how to get attention in inexpensive ways. And 𝗟𝗂𝘁 was a brand called Must Be Nutty, and it was tortillas sold in plastic baggies to the local food co-op. But, they were able to position themselves in a way that people had never seen anything like it before. And they started with some kind of key products, and they were able to kind of build under, one big umbrella. I mean, they're an amazing success story. You look at what they are today, it's kind of mind blowing.
And I know, as we're both marketers here, as marketers, You do obviously have to lead with an incredible quality product, but that's not enough in today's marketplace. You do also need the marketing and the branding
Yeah.
piece. Dude Wipes obviously is a great example of that. Liquid Death is a marketing
Oh my
success
gosh.
story.
I still can't believe it. It's water. It's water in a can. I mean,
Yes. So what role does marketing play then in turning a promising CPG startup into that household name?
it's huge. I mean, it is absolutely huge. Marketing, and I would include kind of packaging, branding under that same umbrella. You go into some of these stores and there's, shelves full of certain products, and some just jump out at you, because the packaging is so compelling, or you have seen some creative social media campaign that they've done that makes you, more inclined to try it. So I think the best brands have done a really good job with marketing. And that doesn't mean spending, millions of dollars. It just means, they have found a way to reach their consumer in a creative way that breaks through the noise. And you look at Midday Squares, they were able to do so much just with creative storytelling and kind of following their journey. It didn't cost them a lot of money to do that, and it helped them build a community of people that, wanted to know what was going on with them, wanted to go, like they had a huge loyal customer base because of the way that they were able to tell a story.
And it's never been harder to tell a story and have it be heard because there's so much noise out there right now. So marketing is an uphill climb for sure. Are there any common marketing mistakes that you see with these early stage companies? And how would you recommend they avoid these pitfalls?
Well, I think sometimes they put all their money into one bucket without testing it. There's a lot of people out there looking to make money off startups, whether it's a PR firm or social media firm, influencers, ad agencies, and all of those are expensive. I mean, I know for my own business, I think about some of the money we spent on all these different marketing channels. And I think, you have to be scrappy initially. You've got to test things before you throw a ton of money into it. And there are things you can do relatively inexpensively. So I think, dedicating a huge chunk of money to marketing, untried marketing, and just trying one thing, I think is always a big mistake.
Are there any, and this is difficult because there is no real one size fits all marketing strategy for every company is different, right? Are there any channels though in particular that you're just seeing brands lean into heavily and that have worked really well for them in terms of marketing campaigns?
I think sampling has really helped a lot of companies because they need people to try it. And once they try it, they tend to, if it's a really great product, they'll tend to buy it. I think social media remains a powerful force. I'm not so sure about influencers because they can be so expensive. And I always recommend that people look for people who already are using their product and already are advocates and tap into them rather than paying some person, $10,000 or $5,000 a month. Many of these people are promoting multiple products, and it may not come off as authentic if, it may not have the impact that they wanted to have. But I think experiential marketing is always a good thing to explore, whether, being at an event that is on brand for you, where you can actually be there and have conversations with customers. I think that's, for indie brands, they are kind of the special sauce. So any way that they can get out there and tell their story, I think gives them at least a major differentiator.
Yeah, of course. I know. And I know that a lot of brands were hurting during the pandemic when in-store demos, retail, things of that nature were kind of put on the sidelines.
Yeah, yeah. I know
Very
that some
challenging.
people were trying sample boxes when that was happening. And, I know personally beauty sample boxes, I'm a sucker for those. And I
Same.
do end up buying, I end up buying things that I try. So I think that can be a good way to you want to get into the hands of people. You want them to try it. You want them to see what's different about the product than what else is out there. When you have a freezer case filled with functional beverages, like, how do you get them to then put that one into their cart?
Right. And there's so much competition too. It's
Yeah.
challenging.
Yeah.
Looking ahead though, speaking of competition, the next breakout category in CPG, what do you think it is and why?
I think it is products that do multiple things. I think people are stretched for time. So, I'm going to use the example of a beef stick that also it has protein, it has bone broth, it has nutrients, it has all these things that are easy and portable, that you can feel good about, eating, multi-use products, I guess I would say. And that's true of beauty, as well as pet, things that serve multiple purposes.
Do you think we're overcomplicating consumer brands, specifically food and beverage, in the sense when you do walk these trade show floors? When I first got into the industry, I was shocked to see, these like gluten-free, cauliflower puffed, THC infused snacks, right? It's like,
Yeah.
are we
No, I
are
mean,
we doing too much?
we may be, which kind of runs counter to my thought about multi-use products. I mean, it's interesting when you go to an Expo West and you go to the North Hall and you see all of these, products. It is a little overwhelming, and that a good portion of those products are not going to make it. So what are the keys in terms of the ones that do make it? And it can be as simple, like, is it because they're simple and their proposition is simple and it's easy for the customer to understand? I'd say some functional beverages are like this. They have so many things in them, and they've got adaptogens and natural caffeine, and it may be too much, maybe
Dysfunctional beverages.
beverages. I like that the adaptogens are fighting with the caffeine, which is fighting with the stevia. And yeah. I don't know. I'd be interested to hear what you think in terms of the, kind of next.
I have no idea. I would say simplification, and ingredient transparency, and it really leaning into ingredient sourcing and finding the best of the best, and leaning into that, whether it's a beauty product. And I'm seeing this a lot in clean beauty, and in snack products as well. And I just bought a new frozen salmon patty for children. It's like a fish stick for salmon, but it's salmon sourced from Norway. And it's really, I was just intrigued at Whole Foods reading the label and the story behind it just from the packaging alone. And I think there will be, if not already, I've already seen it, that movement toward really not necessarily clean ingredients, but transparent sourcing and things of that nature, and simplicity. Which goes against certainly having multifunctional products and, dysfunctional beverages.
Yeah.
But I think as the pendulum always swings both ways, we are living in a crazy, chaotic, complex time. And I think people are gravitating toward simple pleasures and simplicity.
To that point, we have seen kind of a trend toward indulgence. Like, when you want to have ice cream, you want to have ice cream. You don't want to have protein ice cream. You don't want to, we had a company last cohort that was ice cream sandwiches. And, I think at one point they were struggling. Well, do we have, I know that we're talking about all these better for you things and everything. It's like, well, no, there's also a trend of like, the comfort of going back to things that make you feel good, and, not overindulging, but that there's something beautiful about just having a really good ice cream sandwich.
That's for sure. You don't need to convince me on that one.
Yeah.
What do you foresee then, since we're talking about kind of the future of CPG, certainly emerging CPG, what do you think the CPG accelerator of 2030 will look like? And that's only less than, 5 years away.
I think it'll combine a lot of the things that are out there right now. It'll be potentially more accessible to more people. You'll have a startup CPG kind of aspect to it where there's lots of classes that everyone can partake in. I think there'll be more funding types of options available. I mean, I think for startups, education is vital, and mentorship is vital, but so is access to capital. So, how do we make that more accessible to the brands that really have the potential? Like, not everybody can nor should be able to raise millions of dollars, but there are a lot of really great companies out there that, were they to have the capital, could really take off.
Are there any closing thoughts that you have from this conversation? Anything I didn't ask that you would like to add?
Let's see. I mean, I would say the industry is one of the most exciting industries to be a part of. I mean, I always feel so lucky when I'm doing my job, because I get to talk to so many incredibly creative people who are able to take an idea and build something. And I hope we don't lose that. I hope, like the emerging brands, these startup brands, I hope we always have an atmosphere where they can start, and where we do have the tools and the resources for them to hopefully be successful. Because when I was growing up, it was all, General Mills and, the big companies. And this is a really wonderful thing that you have so many entrepreneurs who can now get on the shelves. So I hope that doesn't change. That's what that would be my hope for the future.
And you mentioned earlier in the conversation just the community aspect of CPG and how vibrant it is. And I wholeheartedly agree. I think that that's something that hopefully will never change, will only grow, become more robust. And hopefully, exactly. And SKU is contributing to that. So,
well, more than anything, we like to think of ourselves as a community. I mean, we are an accelerator, but, it's an incredible, group of successful executives and founders, and everybody is kind of dedicated to, this creativity and innovation. And it's really kind of a beautiful thing.
I love it. Well, you have an incredible role within SKU, obviously at the forefront in marketing. I look forward to continuing the conversation and following your journey specifically. Thank you so much for taking the time, Michelle. I really appreciate it.
It was a lot of fun. Have a wonderful rest of your day.